So we're going to start with job interviews. Um, I was talking about the important things to do before you get to the job interview. Um, so, uh, so one of the first things that I like to do is be sure that I know how to get to the place that I'm going to be doing the job interview. I've found that something that works really well for me is, the day or two before, I like to actually go to the location so that I can ensure, one, that I know where it is, two, I know kind of, where to park and kind of the, to know what door I might have to go in, things like that. It's also important to take into account travel time, so ensuring that how long it's going to take to get there, if you have traffic or things like that to account for. It's also really important to know who and where you're going to be meeting. You really want to ensure that you know who the person that you're going to be meeting with, if you'll be meeting with a team, and also the and also the also the location of where you're going to be meeting those people at as well. Um, Another important thing when it comes to job interviews that I like to, kind of preface to folks is the act of is the act of is the act of disclosing. So for those of you who may not have heard that term, disclosing is is essentially the act of letting people know that you stutter. So you can choose how you want to do this. You can be you can choose to just be direct about it, and maybe say something like, "Hey, before we just get before we get started, I want to let you know that I'm a person who stutters, and if there's ever a point in time during the interview that things are unclear, feel free to ask me to repeat myself, and I would be happy to do it." Or you can choose to go a more humorous route, and you might say, "Hey, so I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I'm a person who stutters, and that just means that it's going to take a little bit longer for you guys to hear all of my wonderful ideas." So, there's really no rhyme or there's really no right or wrong way to do it. It just depends on what you are going to be the most comfortable with doing. So now I'm going to kick it off to my co-presenter, Haley, and she's going to walk us through some more aspects of the job interview.
So the preparation is key for job interviews. So start off by practicing some of the most common interview questions, and these are typically about your background, why you are interested in this position, follow-up questions on your resume, just like those types of common questions. Something else that can help too is to Google the job or career field and common interview questions associated with that. So that'll actually come up with potential questions that might come up. And something else that can be helpful too is review the job description and your resume. So compare the two of them and take notes to see what types of questions they might pull from that job description. So they are probably going to want you to make references that can be matched to that particular position. So that is some of the preparation tactics. And the STAR method, this is a full proof method to answer questions such as situational questions or behavioral questions, such as talk about a time when you faced a difficult customer and how did you handle it. So the STAR method, it comes across as very well spoken and thought out. So the interviewers love it when questions are answered with this format. So for example, this stands for situation. So describe this situation, task, what were you responsible for within this situation? Action, what action did you take to overcome this challenge? And then finally, results. Try to express the results in a quantitative data if possible. And how did the processes and procedures get better to you fixing this problem? So all of that, to take that method, think of 3 to 5 situations that I can apply to this STAR method, and then feel free to throw these in sporadically throughout the interview. So finally, just practice. It doesn't need to be totally memorized. Just practice till you are comfortable in rehearsing it.
Awesome. Thank you, Haley. I just wanted to give you a shout out because I worked with you a lot on this when I was going through the interview process for my most recent job that I got. And I probably interviewed for 20 or so jobs, and we worked through this and kind of went through the STAR method. And after I did that and started interviewing with that technique, that's the job that I got. So that's a really good method for folks to use.
Were you on, Carl?
Yes.
Carl?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I'm Frank Steckel, and Ariel and I are going to present on the first day of the job. So now that you've had a successful job interview, you have to plan for actually starting the job. And if your forthcoming job actually goes well, the first day on the job can actually be, for many of us, I think, the worst day of your job. So I think one of the things to recall when you start your first day is that you should have a degree of self-confidence. You've just gone through the job interview. You've done well enough on your job interview to convince an employer and sometimes an employer team to hire you for this job. And oftentimes there's a sense of exhilaration after you get the job, and again, this is my experience that I'm speaking about, and then as it comes time for you to actually start the job, you go, oh, like, oh crap, I actually have to now work on this job. So the thing to recall is you should feel good about yourself, that you've actually gotten the job, and don't let those good vibes sort of fade as you approach the first day on the job. You then have to, and I'm going to speak a few minutes just on the preparation for the first day, and Ariel's going to speak about what you actually do on the first day. So as you approach the first day on the job, it's like anything else, you really have to prepare for that first day. And Carl mentioned in his presentation what you do to prepare for a job interview, and some of those same ideas obviously apply to the first day on the job also. And I also want to just go back and say that if you Google first day on the job, you're going to come up with a lot of really wonderful ideas for what to do on the first day on your job. I've just taken a few out that I think applies to us folks who stutter. So the first thing is, as Carl mentioned, you obviously have to come on time for the first day on the job, know what the dress code is, and I think importantly, get enough sleep. Try to get enough sleep, because if you come to work rested, that's really going to go a long way towards your really feeling that you're on the job. I think one of the other important elements of the first day on the job is when you start your job, as I think most of you know, you're going to be doing some talking, but you're going to be doing listening mainly. So effective listening strategies is very, very important to be focused when you're speaking to other people. Again, speaking for myself as a person who stutters, I try to be focused on what other people are saying, but oftentimes I'm more focused on what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. So I'm going to skip to the bullet point on mindfulness. one of the strategies to be focused is to engage in a mindfulness process, whether it's actual mindfulness meditation or some other focusing technique that you might have. It will tend to focus you on that first day and will also help, I think, to reduce the anxiety that you have on that job. The other thing is to prepare a list of questions, more detailed questions that you might have either of the manager that you're going to work for, or perhaps human resources. You have a general orientation to the job, likely from the job interview that you had. But you want to focus on the specific questions now that you're starting the job. One of the other preparation techniques is what they call to prepare an elevator speech. An elevator speech is basically a 30-second bio on yourself. The first day on the job, someone will invariably ask you, oh, where did you last work? Where did you go to school? Where do you live? So, I mean, you know all these things, but to have them in your head might not be that clear because you're really anxious on the first day. So to prepare this kind of elevator speech might be helpful. The last thing I'd like to discuss is just, if you have any speech strategies that you use, either in terms of fluency shaping or stuttering modification strategies, it's probably a good idea to maybe think about those and practice those before the first day, so that you come to the first day not thinking you're not going to stutter, or but to feel confident in yourself and as confident in your speech as you can. And I just wanted to say one last thing I wanted to say. With the mindfulness approach, there is a very good webinar that the NSA did on a number of subjects related to employment and jobs, and you can find a webinar on mindfulness there amongst all the other very good webinars that the NSA produced on employment issues. And I would now like to turn it over to Ariel, who's going to speak to you about the first day on the job.
Hi guys, I'm Ariel. So once you have prepared and done your research and practice mindfulness and everything else that we've talked about, you actually get to the office, or in this case, your Zoom meeting or wherever it is. So for me, the hardest thing, and probably for most people who stutter, introductions is incredibly hard. I've had both kinds of job experiences where the first day people were super welcoming and everyone came and introduced themselves to me, which was great because they already knew who I was, so I didn't have to struggle and say my name like 20 times that day. But then I've also had the experience where it's an environment where people tend to keep more to themselves, so people don't, come up and introduce themselves. So if you might have an experience like that, I want to stress that it's okay to feel really scared to introduce yourself. And if you only meet a couple of people on your first day, that's okay. I mean, you want to make a good impression, but if you stress yourself out so much over introductions or small talk or other things, you'll be so stressed that you won't be at your best self, and then you won't, leave that great of an impression. So however you handle your introductions, whether you're trying to be more accepting and forthcoming about your stutter with advertising, or by just allowing yourself to stutter, or if you're not quite there yet and you are still and you still don't want to really show your stutter, that's okay. Just make the effort to introduce yourself to people, and that will make you feel more comfortable in your work environment. The next thing, and this is something that I personally have definitely struggled with, is feeling like you have to own the room on your first day. I am an outgoing person and I love to talk to people, and I feel especially like pressured to speak up in meetings if I'm new to the job, because I want people to see that, I can pick up on things pretty quickly and I know what I'm doing there. But it's really easy to get so caught up in that you feel like you have to own the room, and you don't, because it's your very first day on the job. You don't want to try and, put out all of this false confidence. You just want to be yourself. And so if you're in meetings and you want to speak up, then that's great, but just don't put so much pressure that you have to do it constantly. The next thing I want to mention is small talk. And this kind of goes with introductions. For some people who stutter, small talk is easy. And for other people, it's really, really hard. So I think small talk is really important because it allows you to get to know your colleagues and the whole work environment. And I think generally people want to work in a place that they enjoy, with people that they enjoy talking to. The NSA actually did a webinar, I think, on talking to colleagues, or small talk was part of the overall presentation. And I think that's on the NSA's employment resources page. So you should definitely check it out. But it's just really important to make small talk, get to know your colleagues, leave a good impression. I've probably said that like 20 times by this point. But even if you're really shy and you don't want to make small talk to every person you see, that's okay. Start with the person that is next to you. Start with the person you see in the break room or in the hallway, or if you're standing by, well, I guess you wouldn't be standing by a printer these days, but you get my point. The last thing I want to mention, listen to others. I think we all can get very caught up in focusing inward and on how we sound and how we stutter, and it's really easy to get caught up in that. But it's also important to focus outward. Focus on the content that the meetings are about. Don't just stress about your stutter the whole time. Pay attention to what people are saying when they're talking to you. Listen to them, because if you make the focus all about speech and all about your stutter, you probably won't remember much from the actual day. I know personally, like when I was in college and I had to give presentations, I would totally just like black out and like I have no clue what the people before me said, because I was so stressed about my own speech. And then when it was my turn to talk, what I was saying didn't really flow with the rest of the group presentation. And I'm sure if we've all had moments like that. So to reiterate, once you're there, introduce yourself to people, at least a few people, and try to make some short, easy, whatever's comfortable for you, small talk. And also, don't feel like you have to own the room, and don't forget to listen to other people. So, once you've been at the job, you may need to give presentations, and that's oh so much fun. So, I'm going to let Derek and Jonathan take it away from here.
Thank you, Ariel. Again, everyone, I'm Jeff Mitchell. Is anybody else? Is anyone else um hearing some static, or is that just me?
It was a little bit earlier, but it's no longer.
Okay, good. Okay. Again, everyone. Derek Mitchell, and today I'll be talking to you about a topic that I was terrified of at one point, but now I am very passionate about. And I'll be telling you how to use the 3 C's of choosing a quality diamond, the color, cut, and clarity to also to create an effective presentation. And before I get into those 3 C's, I want to give you some background on my experience with this topic. So I really began being intentional and strategic with how I delivered presentations when I was in graduate school, because I was terrified of having to give presentations on a regular basis, and on top of that, having them critiqued by people with PhDs. So I went into giving a presentation with the mindset that I wanted to have something that was so visually striking and clear that when I hit, those moments of a long block, that the presentation would be enough to hold the attention of my audience until I could finish what I was saying. And if I have a few minutes at the end of this, I'll tell you when that came most in handy. So I'll go into the first C, which is color. All right. Now I believe that an effective presentation starts with aesthetics. I believe that appealing visuals will draw in your audience and make them more receptive to the information that you are giving them. I've seen presentations that have had great information, but the visuals just didn't look right. So there was a barrier. To me absorbing the information. And so with that, I always keep the audience in mind and make sure that what they are seeing is visually pleasing. And to do that, you will have to use a measure of creativity with tailoring your presentation to your message, your presence, and of course to your speech, which goes back to the objective that I come into a presentation with, is to make sure that it can be a stopgap for those long blocks in my speech. But make sure that the color and the design and the formatting is not overpowering. The color should be just a complement to your delivery, and hence the term visual aid. You also will want to be aware of what's appropriate for that situation, and make sure that that the formatting and the visuals you are using doesn't have the opposite effect and actually alienate your audience. So pay attention to the culture of your company, your audience, and the purpose of your presentation, and make sure that it's in alignment. And the second C is cut. And you need to cut to the chase. The challenge of having a stutter and giving a presentation is that we have to make the same or more of an impact with less words. But while that might be a challenge, it's a challenge that you can use to your advantage. And that's because I've noticed that so many people tend to inundate their audience with too much information, whether it be too much on the slide itself or them verbally giving too much information, more than the audience can absorb at that point in time. So be selective when choosing your words, and make sure that your message is powerful and concise and effectively communicates your message and satisfies your objective. One example of this is one of my previous jobs when I was on a conference call with the senior vice president of our parent company, and the project manager had put all this text on a slide, and the vice president said, I can't even read this. This is a wall of words. And this is a person who had influence over the budget for that project. So that meeting did not go well. So it's beautiful that you are able to concisely give your message and not put too much information out there, and you can use the first C, color, as I have in the past, to create some striking imagery that can really be more effective than just putting a bunch of text on a slide. And finally, we have clarity. Now, this is when you look at what you've put together and evaluate if the formatting and the content and also your presence all come together and meet the objective. This is the core of your presentation. Does it have the impact on your audience that you want it to? And so many times we are focused on our fluency, but as Ariel just mentioned, that shouldn't be where our full attention is focused on. It should be on the content and the effectiveness, because for us, fluency might be an indicator of a successful presentation, but for the audience, it's not. So ask yourself, have I used the right metrics to paint the picture that I want to? Have I used the right visuals to invoke the desired emotions if I'm trying to persuade an audience? If I'm pitching a business to investors, have I captured the right value proposition of my idea? Now, the first two C's just create what the audience will see and hear, but it's that third C that that really changes the audience's perspective, pushes them to make a decision or take an action according to what your objectives were. And you are at the center of the clarity of your presentation. The visual aid is just a complement, but it's you. It's your energy, it's your presence, it's your belief, it's your authenticity that will really impact the audience. And very quickly, my experience of where this was effective is when I was giving my graduate thesis, and I hit a long and hard block. And I was noticing how my professors were reacting, and I could see their attention modulating between me and the presentation. And as they did that, I could slowly see the lights start to come on, and they were beginning to understand what I was saying. But it wasn't until I finished my statement that it clicked. So while the presentation achieved its goal in holding their attention, I was the key to really bringing home that message and delivering a presentation that would convince them that I should graduate, which is most important. So as a recap, use color to capture the audience's attention, cut to the chase, and give the information in a way the audience can absorb. And regardless of your approach that you take to presenting, always keep in mind that you are the key to the clarity and the impact of the presentation. So always do what is best for your message and your audience. And so now we are going to go to Catherine and Charlie, and they will talk with us about the challenges of conference calls and video calls.
Thank you, Derek. And before I hand it over to Charlie and Catherine, I just want to do a time check, which I hate to do for a presentation that's led by people who stutter. But we have about 20 minutes. That's until the official end of our workshop. But I'm hoping that we might be able to go a few minutes over. But I just want to give you guys a time check that we're at 20 official minutes until the end. All right, we've got Charlie and Catherine. I'm not sure if you guys are on mute, but
I'm on. Catherine, I think you're up first if you're ready. Catherine, you need to
Insist.
Perfect.
Yeah, well, I'll well, par, are participating in 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 can people please mute themselves? There's a lot of background noise. Participating in meetings can be a very very challenging and big as uh, as because the actually the fast fa, fast talkers will tend to talk 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 over you and it can be even in more or
wanted to take a moment and give every
hello and trying to to trying to get get your speech going so you can can and 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 in 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 interrupt people can can be doubly challenging. Big 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 because as a lot of us us tend and to block 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 on the 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 oh oh open ending words and giving people more of a chance to talk over you. And I'm going to and hand this over to Charlie now, and and I'll be back with some concrete suggestions for or for dealing with is Zoom Zoom meeting. So the floor is yours now. The floor is yours now, Charlie.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. Carl, if you could advance the slide, that'd be great. Great. So again, as you saw on the previous slide, a lot of this information comes straight from an excellent webinar by Mara Ormond that's available on the NSA website. It's one of many excellent webinars there for you related to stuttering in the workplace, and we have more to come. So some things to think about regarding meetings. So what if I didn't stutter? So would I still be nervous going into the meeting? Possibly. Would I still be quiet? Why is this important? And Mara says this, and that's why I put quotes on it in the webinar. The more we can isolate the effects of stuttering, the more effective we can be in dealing with it. So let's think about what makes for a successful meeting. So you want to think in terms of the big picture and of the specific meeting. So maybe I'll take the meeting itself first. So for this meeting, every meeting has a goal. So was the goal of that meeting met? And maybe more importantly, concerning stuttering, was everyone's opinion heard and valued? And that's really specific to you too. Did you get to say what you wanted to say? In the big picture, of course, some things to strive for in meetings are, do I talk enough? Am I valued? And am I connecting with my colleagues? Things to try to cut down on are nervousness, fear, and discomfort. As Derek pointed out, so you want to define success in terms of things you have control over, not the behaviors and reactions of others. And so, as Derek pointed out earlier, fluency should not be an indicator of success. Okay, in terms of preparing for the meeting, and we know that people who stutter tend to prepare very well for things like meetings. So there are going to be times in meetings when you want to say something, when you need to say something, and you need to have a way to get in there. So maybe that's a gesture, like raising your hand. Maybe it's a comment like, I need a moment. You need to think about how you're going to get the floor when you need it or when you want it. It's also great to have a meeting ally. This is a colleague who knows you well, who's going to look out for you in the meeting, and who's going to make sure that you have the time, or help make sure you have the time and the space that you need to do what you need to do in that meeting. Other things you want to know. Obviously, you want to be very familiar with the agenda. You want to know who's going to be in that meeting if you can, right? Because that's going to be important. Are there going to be people there you haven't met yet? That's important, right? Because they don't know yet, right? They may not know yet about you and your stuttering. You're certainly going to want to be very familiar with anything that you're in charge of discussing in that meeting. And any comments that you have on other items on the agenda that you want to make sure to get across, you want to have those ready, and you might want to rehearse those in advance. So let's see, moving on. And someone earlier asked in the chat about going around the room. Someone mentioned that this was incredibly stressful. It is. Next slide, Carl. Yeah, going around the room. So it's not unlike being in grade school on the first day of class, going around the room, right? Nervous just like that. So disclosure is important. As a therapist, I'm a big fan of disclosure. Now, some employees use visual disclosure. Maybe they have a button, an NSA button that they wear. Maybe they have an NSA poster in their cube or in their office. These can be great ways to make sure everybody knows that you stutter. Now, in that meeting, you don't know, maybe you don't know who all is in there. Maybe they don't know that you stutter. You might want a statement something like this. Some of you already know that I stutter. The rest of you are finding out right now. That's a good one. So disclosures can also be unapologetic. A nice brief one is, I stutter. Give it a minute, you'll get used to it. That's one of my favorites. I saw in the chat earlier, someone put on their resume that they're involved with the NSA. Another great way to disclose prior even to the interview. Okay, next slide.
Hey, Charlie, just want to do a time check. So we
Yep.
actually have to wrap it up within the next 5 minutes. I know we still have a few more slides. So is there any way we can kind of speed through those few slides? Okay, awesome.
Will do. So after the meeting, was it successful? Did I talk as much as I wanted to? Did I cut down on my fear? Did the meeting meet its goal? What's something that worked well that I want to do again? What's something that I might want to change about? On the next call, really quickly, Catherine mentioned Zoom calls. We're doing a lot of Zooming now. We're Zooming right now. One advantage of Zooming, next slide, Carl, you've got the raise hand feature and the chat box. That's one way to get your point across. I think we could probably go on to, Catherine had a slide at 10, or we can go on to questions. It's up to you, Catherine.
I'm going to take a few minutes just to close things up here. So Charlie mentioned and two very good points about raising your hand and when you want to jump jump in, and that's a very very good tactic to get at people to give you the 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 necessary the 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 uh 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 tension and the space that you need and and uh, uh, and part partnering with somebody he to be on the lookout out where when you're getting getting talked over happens to be crucial also and 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 not substituting words uh, uh, and 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 letting people know that at you've accepted your or stutter disclosure and 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 uh, 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 and all also humor will go, go a very long ways into making them um, 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 comfortable with your stutter as well. Okay, that's it. I'm done.
Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. This is the first time I've been able to see everyone's faces since we started. So it's good to see everyone's faces again. We have another workshop that's starting at the top of the hour. So in the interest of fairness to our other presenters that are going, we're gonna end our call now. but we are going to have a recording of the video, and we're also going to have the slides that we went through today, and they're going to be available on our site. So I want to thank everyone for coming. I haven't been able to see the chat, but I know that you guys have been submitting lots of great questions and comments. So we appreciate you guys for coming. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
really
you.
good night. Thank you.
Good
Thanks,
day.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.